This is your news source evening bulletin for today, Friday, the 2nd day of July in the year 2021. I'm Gordon Mosley. Here's what we're tracking tonight. APNU AFC Member of Parliament Jermaine Figuera took over as the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee of the National Assembly today, following the ouster of his colleague David Paterson from the chairman's position. The government used its majority 2 weeks ago to pass a motion of no confidence against Paterson as the PAC chair, owing to issues surrounding his time as a government minister and the charge that he is currently facing before the courts in relation to the Demerara Bridge feasibility contract. At today's meeting of the PAC, the opposition nominated and elected Figuera to the post. The Region 10 Member of Parliament, who is serving his second term as an MP, said Paterson's removal as PAC chair is no victory, as there was a grave miscarriage of justice when the government used its majority to vote him out of the position. He warned the government that it has now put a dangerous precedent in motion.
That my election as chairman comes on the heels of a grave miscarriage of justice against Mr. David Paterson, who was doing a phenomenal job as chairman of the PAC. His removal by this said motion, Mr. Speaker, we believe sets a very bad precedent on the architecture of the procedural aspect of matters of the House and other committees. The removal of Mr. Paterson, Mr. Speaker, is no victory here today. Sir, the confidence reposed on me by my fellow colleagues is appreciated, and it speaks to the view of our very own Guyanese vernacular, that when you remove one Rasta, another will take his place.
MP Figuera said moving forward, the Public Accounts Committee intends to keep the government's feet to the fire when it comes to the government's spending of taxpayers' money.
And we on this side of the House will, Mr. Speaker, with a whirlwind of resoluteness, will manage the affairs of this committee to ensure transparency and accountability of the people's money. We will redouble our efforts to get the work done by meeting as often as possible to complete much work that was stalled as a result of the PPP's most despicable motion to remove Mr. David Paterson as chairman of this committee. But we are resolute, sir, in our commitment to represent the interests of every Guyanese and ensuring that transparency and accountability in this committee is met.
The Public Accounts Committee is considered the most powerful committee in the National Assembly because of its sweeping powers in overlooking the government's financing and spending. The work of the committee was stalled for several months. More news coming up in just a moment.
What's our purpose? Together we rise. For our community, our customer, and our country. Our promises: strengthen our community, reliably connect our customers, innovate for all in our country. Together, we rise.
It's one of your biggest goals, getting your own home, where memories are made, where happiness lives. You may feel that home ownership or renovation is beyond your reach, but we at Republic want you to know that there's always a way. Ask us about our suite of mortgages. Let's help make your housing wishes come true. Or advise on how the equity in your existing home can finance other dreams and goals. Call or go online to learn more.
Preparing for your NGSA exams is always a challenge. The Guyana Learning Channel is here to help. You can go to YouTube using your browser or your mobile device, then search for the Guyana Learning Channel in the search bar. We're live streaming our NGSA booster videos all day and all night. If you want to study a specific subject or topic, you can go to our NGSA booster playlist. You can look at a specific subject, such as mathematics, and then look for a specific topic. Here, you can follow along with the lesson to prepare for your examination. Remember kids, study hard, and best of luck in your exams.
Mom, what are you doing with GPL on your list?
Child, you forgot I have to pay GPL?
You got time with GPL?
I have to keep these lights on. The customers who think in that manner and refuse to honor their obligation to GPL are obviously not playing their part in ensuring quality service delivery. So, I will continue to pay my GPL bill on time, every time.
I recognize the value of your point, Mom. You were right.
GWI introduces CAP, their customer assistance promotion that offers massive discounts. For a limited time, get 50% off all reconnection fees and another 50% off your entire bill. If your service was removed or you've reconnected on your own, GWI is offering yet another 50% discount off all tampering and replacement fees. Wallet-friendly payment plans are also available. So tap into GWI's customer assistance promotion by visiting any GWI office and avoid them taking legal action. CAP only applies to customers whose services were disconnected or removed prior to 2021. For more information, call 227-8701 or WhatsApp 620-1667. Water is life. Save it.
Sonia, you think people easy? People just really want to do their own thing. Look across the road how we building the house low. The building code say you're supposed to be 2 feet off the ground.
And when the place flood, them just be the first to complain.
But you know sometimes we that just contribute to the flooding with we behavior.
You know, boy, we just throw things in the drains and canals. We don't keep the gutters clean and dispose of garbage properly. By the way, you got an emergency kit?
Yeah, Sonia, I got me own and it got drinking water, army medicines, and for say things like band-aids, iodine, bandages.
And me own got in toothpaste, a change of underwear and clothing, toilet paper and soap.
Guyana, our country, our responsibility.
Mobil 1 is more than oil. It's many oils. It transforms at the molecular level. When cold, it's thicker than honey. When hot, it's thinner than water. Mobil 1 adapts and readapts to last longer. 16,000 kilometers between oil changes. That's your engine evolved.
Sol Guyana is the authorized distributor of Mobil lubricants.
We are legions of men standing strong, but never too proud to stoop and help someone. We must send a clear signal to all. Do right. Walk in upright ways, knowing that's what being a man is all about. And ever aware that things will only get worse when good men do nothing. Stand strong. Be the one to live right.
Let GBTI make your dreams of owning a home a reality. Buy or build your home with us. Let us help you to completely outfit your home and make it move-in ready. Need to purchase land? We finance that too. Benefit from our 10% down payment and interest rates as low as 4.25%. Calculated on the reducing balance with up to 30 years to repay. Switch your mortgage to us and learn about benefiting from the equity in your home. Invest wisely. Apply online or call your branch to schedule an appointment. GBTI, we see Guyana through your eyes.
Welcome back. Less than 24 hours after the police stated that it did not get any in-person interviews with the witnesses who could provide an alibi for murder-accused Glaston Henry in that harassing murder case, the police today arrested 6 of the witnesses as they presented themselves to the investigators to provide their statements. The 6 witnesses who claimed that they were with Glaston Henry at his home when Harrison was murdered were taken into custody this afternoon as they visited the CID headquarters in the company of attorney Nigel Hughes. The Guyana Police Force in a statement last night indicated that it intends to pursue investigations against the witnesses for attempting to pervert the course of justice. The police force is basing its investigations on its position that the witnesses could not have been at the house watching the post-mortem of the murdered Henry Cousins with their relatives, since the father of one of the murdered youths who was at the post-mortem examination was not live streaming the examination. But speaking to news source this afternoon, attorney Nigel Hughes said the 6 witnesses were arrested as soon as they arrived at the CID headquarters, and they are still in custody.
It is clear that this is an attempt to harass them into withdrawing their statements, and they're all adamant, all their statements are consistent. And I do want to say to you that we have got the copy of the video recording of the post-mortem, which was done by Patrice Henry, and it was transmitted live. We also have in the statement of Miss Patricia Henry, which was given long before the police issued their press release. She gave a description of what Mrs. Sarabo was wearing on the day of the incident, and it's confirmed by the photograph of Mrs. Sarabo at the post-mortem.
The police force in its statement last evening had denied the family's claim that the police inspector, Sarabo, was at the house on the morning of Harris Singh's murder and would have noticed the murder accused Glaston Henry there. Attorney Hughes said the witnesses have all been detained with very little information being provided about when they will be released.
All the detainees are female. One of them has a 7-month-old child, lactating mother, and the other one, who's a sister of Patricia Henry, is of advanced years and diabetic. This is really very disturbing and very I would say a crude attempt at intimidation.
The Henry family maintains that Glaston Henry, who is the brother of the murdered Isaiah Henry, could not have been part of the murder of Harris Singh. They are convinced that the entire murder investigation has now taken a political turn. While the Guyana police force last evening responded to the claims by attorney Nigel Hughes that there is a miscarriage of justice in the Harris Singh murder investigation with a charge against Glaston Henry. On Tuesday, Glaston Henry, who is a relative of the 2 murdered Henry Cousins, was charged along with 3 other men for the murder of Harris Singh. Harris Singh was murdered on the same day that the post-mortem examination was being conducted on the bodies of the Henry Cousins, Isaiah and Joel, who were found murdered in the Cotton Tree Village Bank Dam in Berbice last September. Glaston Henry's attorney Nigel Hughes has complained about the charge against him, claiming that he could not have been part of the murder since he was at home watching a live video stream of the post-mortem examination of his brother Isaiah and cousin Joel when the murder took place. But the police force in a statement last evening appeared to be denying that claim. According to the police, the father, Glaston Henry, was only in the post-mortem examination room briefly and never had any phone in his possession to live stream the post-mortem examination. The police statement, while alluding to its video recording of the post-mortem, did not state whether there was any other person in the room video recording or live streaming the post-mortem. The police forces also claimed that while the attorney wrote to them about an alibi for the murder accused and witnesses to back up that alibi, those witnesses never presented themselves, and the force only got prepared statements provided by the attorney. The Guyana police force also stated that its attempt to contact 2 of the witnesses listed found that they did not live at the addresses provided. The police force said it is now going to pursue the 9 alibi witnesses for allegedly attempting to pervert the course of justice, since there was no recording and no live streaming of the post-mortem examination. The police force in its detailed statement last evening also said the purported alibi witnesses directly contradict other individuals who placed Glaston Henry in the company of the other suspects at Harris Singh's home and at the scene of the crime at the material time. And in response to a claim that Police Inspector Sarabo was at the home of the Henrys in No. 3 Village Berbice while Glaston Henry was there on the same day that Harris Singh was murdered, the police said that would be impossible, since the same inspector was in Georgetown at the post-mortem examination. The police force provided video grabs and photographs from the post-mortem examination to prove that the inspector was at the Memorial Garden Cemetery during the post-mortem and not in Berbice. The police force has defended its handling of the investigations into the murder of Harris Singh, stating that it has discharged its mandate in completing the investigation and sending the file to the Director of Public Prosecutions for legal advice. According to the police, the charges were instituted upon the legal advice received from the DPP. The force believes that talk about the charge being a miscarriage of justice is a desperate and deliberate attempt to pervert the course of justice. Minister of Health Dr. Frank Anthony today issued a call for adults to take added precautions to protect their children from contracting COVID-19. During his daily update today, the health minister revealed that in the past year, over 1,500 children locally have tested positive for the virus. There have been at least 2 children who died after being hospitalized with COVID-19. Dr. Anthony said with the various variants of the virus, more children are contracting it and spreading it too. He said while in most cases the symptoms are mild, there have been cases where children were severely infected. But there are currently 4 children hospitalized with COVID-19.
I think it's important that we take the necessary precautions, especially with our children, to make sure that they are protected. They wear masks when it's necessary if they're going out. Because the virus, as we can see, can affect children. And I don't think a lot of people have paid attention to that. And therefore, it's time that we pay some attention to this, especially now that we are seeing not just the mild cases in children, but we are seeing more severe forms of COVID among the children population.
Schools in Guyana have been closed for more than a year because of the pandemic. But with many of the adults heading out to work and going about their daily lives with not enough precautions, the virus is making its way back into the homes and affecting the lives of children too. The health minister said in many of the cases involving children, respiratory and other illnesses appear to top the list.
We have also seen complications when children get infected. And there's a syndrome that has been described that is called multiple system inflammatory syndrome, or for short, it's called MIS-C. And basically what you'll see is multi-organ failure, elevated markers and fever and so forth. We haven't really seen that in Guyana, but it's a complication of COVID when children get infected.
Meanwhile, the Ministry of Education is looking at the possibility of reopening schools in September, but has made it clear that it will be guided by the advice of the Ministry of Health. Schools are only being allowed face-to-face learning at this time for high school students preparing for the regional examinations and primary school students who will be in the classroom for their common entrance exams next month. Guyana continues to see a rise in COVID-19 cases, with a daily average of 100 new cases being recorded in the past month. Leader of the People's National Congress Reform, David Granger, has accused the government of badly managing the 7-week-long flood, which has left several communities devastated and the country still reeling to overcome the national disaster. During his weekly public interest program today, the former president said the PP Civic administration took far too long to acknowledge and respond appropriately to the disaster, which still affects the entire country, especially rural and hinterland regions. He pointed out that it wasn't until the 5th of June that the administration felt obliged to admit that the country was facing its worst natural disaster, when that was known weeks before.
But the government was certainly slow in acknowledging that the flood had reached disastrous proportions. But it was clear from my own contact with my members of parliament and persons in all of the regions, Region 10, Region 7, Region 1, Region 2, that the situation had already been a disaster maybe 2 or 3 weeks into the flood.
Mr. Granger said despite the government receiving $10 billion from the National Assembly in emergency funding to address the flooding, it is still to unveil a national plan for flood relief and recovery.
We heard that some money has to go to the farmers, some money has to go to the miners, but we don't know how much will be spent on infrastructural changes, to remove the floodwaters. We don't know how much will be spent on relief We don't know how much we spent on recovery, how much we spent on compensation.
And the PNC leader said that while the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency's detailed damage sector analysis report has been welcomed, it could not have been expected to examine the extent of the disaster over an area that is twice as large as the entire English-speaking Caribbean.
Everybody welcomes the Caribbean, the CDMA team, but reading the report, it's full of generalities, it is not a very deep report. Of course, they spent a very short time on the ground, and it was only a preliminary report. This requires an in-depth study, because Guyana, if you put all of the Anglophone Caribbean countries together,
Mr. Granger said the scale of human misery, especially in riverine communities like Akawini, Kukwani, and Maracaibo, has been grossly underestimated and underreported. He also expressed shock at the administration's refusal to accept food supplies from Trinidad while flood victims were going hungry. Granger called on the PP civic government to immediately convene an independent and impartial inquiry into the disaster and to initiate disaster management preparations for the December rains, which are expected in a few months' time. Now let's tell you that the US government, through its State Department, is pressing Guyana to increase prosecutions and convictions in sex and labor trafficking cases. That is just one of the list of recommendations for Guyana in the 2021 International Trafficking in Persons Report, which was released today by the U.S. Secretary of State. Guyana remains at Tier 1 on the Trafficking in Persons list. The report noted that the government of Guyana fully meets the minimum standards for the elimination of trafficking. The report found that despite the documented impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the government's anti-trafficking capacity, the government continued to demonstrate serious and sustained efforts during the reporting period. Those efforts included increasing investigations, identifying and assisting more victims, creating the first anti-trafficking hotline in Spanish, opening an additional shelter, and creating standard operating procedures for victim identification. But the report noted that although the government meets the minimum standards, it did not prosecute as many traffickers or provide adequate screening and shelter for child and male victims. The government of Guyana, the report said, also lacked capacity and training to identify and investigate trafficking cases in remote regions. The U.S. State Department is recommending that Guyana investigates trafficking cases in remote regions of the country, fund specialized victim services, particularly for child and adult male and Venezuelan victims in their native language, and reduce delays in court proceedings and pre-trial detention of suspects. Additionally, the report recommends the monitoring of the working conditions of Cuban medical workers and hold convicted traffickers, including complicit public officials, accountable by imposing strong sentences. In the past few years, Guyana has been improving its response to cases of trafficking in persons, with more cases being identified and more persons facing the courts. The government has said it remains committed to tackling the scourge.
It's one of your biggest goals, getting your own home, where memories are made, where happiness lives. You may feel that home ownership or renovation is beyond your reach, but we at Republic want you to know that there's always a way. Ask us about our suite of mortgages. Let's help make your housing wishes come true. Or advise on how the equity in your existing home can finance other dreams and goals. Call or go online to learn more.
At Sash Financial, we create strategies for strengthening business and personal finances while helping our clients to build sustainable wealth. Our financial and business consultancy services are uniquely tailored to ensure every client receives quality packages and optimal results. Our financial services include financial reporting and analysis, financial status assessment, internal audits, bookkeeping and records management, financial planning advice, tax returns. Our business advisory services are related to business plans, business startups, operational improvement, business management, document preparation, procedures development, efficient marketing. Call or WhatsApp us today for your free consultation on telephone number 592-665-6045. Sash Financial, strengthening businesses, building wealth.
What's our purpose? Together we rise. For our community, our customer, and our country. Our promises: strengthen our community, reliably connect our customers, innovate for all in our country. Together we rise.
Fuel it up and drive, super 95. Tune up. Fuel it up and drive, super 95. Tune up. Protect your fuel system, boy. High mileage and performance, boy.
Guy Oil's Super 95 gasoline gives you more reasons to drive and is available at 56 service stations nationwide. For affordable price, high performance, and high mileage, choose Guy Oil's Super 95 gasoline.
Fuel it up and drive.
I'd like to encourage persons to take the vaccination. There are options in terms of which vaccine you would like to take, and at this point we are encouraging those in the senior category to take the vaccine as they are at higher risk, and we have seen a number of fatalities and persons who have suffered from complications globally and in Guyana. This is adding to a layer of protection which we would have had before from the mask, socially distancing, as well as ensuring that we wash our hands and sanitize. So I had it, really doesn't feel badly. I'm not a needles fan, really doesn't feel badly, and I would really like to encourage everyone to get vaccinated. This is the way we save lives. So save your life and save the lives of others. Get vaccinated.
Tonight, Hurricane Elsa caused power outages, blew off roofs, toppled trees, and caused flooding in areas of the island nation of Barbados today. The Minister of Home Affairs, Information and Public Affairs, Wilfred Abrams, urged Barbadians to shelter in place and only leave their homes if the structures were to become damaged. Elsa strengthened into a hurricane earlier in the day and was about 40 miles west of Barbados, blowing maximum sustained winds of 75 miles per hour, the U.S. National Hurricane Center reported. The minister said most reports have observed damage to the south of the island, including power outages, fallen trees, flash flooding, and roofs being blown off. But there were no reports of injuries or deaths. Winds were expected to pick up and utility and emergency services would not be able to reach people in need, the minister said. A resident in South Barbados said his home lost power around 7 o'clock this morning and he witnessed blown off roofs and some flash flooding in his neighborhood. In Jamaica, the Jamaica Public Service Company has called for the government to establish a special utility court to prosecute thieves of electricity. Senior company officials have argued that no loss reduction program would be effective and sustainable without a high probability of offenders being caught and prosecuted. Despite spending $150 million in the last 5 years to reduce electricity theft, the JPS said it was incurring $200 million in losses owing to illegal connections, with 1 in 4 customers illicitly abstracting power. The company says every year approximately 200,000 households steal electricity across Jamaica. The top brass of the company presented a suite of recommendations to a joint select committee considering the Electricity Act 2015 to tackle the perennial problem of stealing electricity in Jamaica. Topping the list was the need for a utility court. And finally tonight, international news. The Attorney General also ordered a review of the rules around the death penalty. The decision had the backing of President Joe Biden, who appointed Mr. Garland, vowing to pause executions. The Trump administration carried out 13 federal executions during the former president's final months in office. In issuing the moratorium, Attorney General Garland cited the disproportionate number of racial minorities who are sentenced to capital punishment. He said the Department of Justice must ensure that everyone in the federal criminal justice system is not only afforded the rights guaranteed by the Constitution and laws of the U.S., but is also treated fairly and humanely. And that's your News Source Evening Bulletin for tonight. I'm Gordon Mosley, reporting and encouraging you to stay safe.